The UK is on lockdown, so I'm adhering to government regulations and staying at home. That means I have no access to my studio and I'm therefore shooting my roundup with poor lighting, no microphone and no backdrop. So, bear with me folks. I'm Jada Franson and this is my weekly roundup. On Thursday this week, the European Union marked the 25th anniversary of the Schengen Agreement coming into force in 7 EU countries. Border controls were abolished, allowing for the free movement of people. Today, 26 countries are members of the area. On the 26th of March 1995, the Schengen Agreement was signed by Belgium, Germany, France, Luxembourg, the Netherlands, Spain and Portugal. Today, 22 European Union countries are members of the Schengen area, as well as 4 associate countries: Iceland, Norway, Switzerland and Liechtenstein. The globalists heading up this superpower support the annihilation of national sovereignty. One currency, one army, one council and no borders. Well, these unelected bureaucrats are now seeing the devastating effects of their beloved 25-year-old Schengen zone, with Europe being declared the epicentre of the COVID-19 pandemic by the World Health Organization.
Europe has now become the epicenter of the pandemic.
After a quarter of a century of unfettered migration throughout the zone, the ramifications of so-called free movement can be quantified by the rapidly increasing number of dead citizens. As a result, what have the individual member states done? They've closed their borders. Spain and Hungary have closed their land borders. Poland has extended its border controls. Germany has introduced border controls with several countries, including France, which has reciprocated. Seasonal workers have been banned from entering Germany, which is the EU's biggest economy. The Czech Republic, Cyprus, Denmark, Lithuania, Romania and Slovakia have closed their borders to all foreigners. Austria has closed its land border with Italy and Switzerland. Globalists do not care about nations or people. They care about one thing and one thing only, and that's power. The fact is, borders save lives. That so many European citizens should have to lose their lives to demonstrate this is scandalous. On Wednesday this week, whilst we were all fixated on the coronavirus pandemic, this happened. The UK government has today made new law allowing for access to abortion services in Northern Ireland. It is a legal requirement that this becomes the law in Northern Ireland by the end of March. The Department of Health in Northern Ireland will now be responsible for setting up abortion services. Northern Ireland, the last place in Europe to abstain from the killing of unborn babies, will now be forced to do so by Westminster. Religion can be a contentious subject in Northern Ireland, but it is safe to say that regardless of denomination, the country is predominantly Christian. The last UK census was in 2011 and it recorded the religious status of citizens in the province as 48.4% Protestants and 45.1% Catholics, 0.9 some other religion and 5.6 as no religion at all. That makes 93.5% of the population Christian. Having studied my Bible, I can say with confidence and certainty that there is no difference in scripture on the subject of abortion. Whether you're reading from a King James, a Catholic Bible, or even the more liberal NIV, thou shalt not kill. Furthermore, the fathers shall not be put to death for the children, neither shall the children be put to death for the fathers. Every man shall be put to death for his own sin. I call heaven and earth to record this day against you, that I have set before you life and death, blessing and cursing. Therefore choose life, that both thou and thy seed may live. Know ye that the Lord, he is God. It is he that hath made us, and not we ourselves. We are his people, and the sheep of his pasture. Lo, children are an heritage of the Lord, and the fruit of the womb is his reward. There are many, many more examples of scriptures that support the Christian stance of being pro-life. So how does a 93.5% Christian country find itself subject to the most extreme and cruel abortion laws in Europe? Quite simply, the people were not given a choice. There was no public vote, no referendum, just Westminster calling the shots. The Northern Ireland office said 79% of consultation respondents to the plans had expressed general opposition to any abortion provision in Northern Ireland beyond that which is currently permitted. But they were ignored, and in a few days' time it will be a legal requirement for abortion to be offered for any and no reason, on demand, and in some cases right up to the point of birth, across this Christian province. For we must all appear before the judgment seat of Christ, that every one may receive the things done in his body, according to that he hath done, whether it be good or bad. This week, 100 illegal immigrants wearing face masks were caught trying to cross the English Channel. Border Force officers detained and tested around 84 migrants for coronavirus after intercepting their boats off the Kent coast. This is at a time when our NHS staff are desperately waiting to be tested so that they can work tirelessly to save other people's lives. So whilst the public were outside their houses clapping and cheering for these frontline workers this week, valuable British resources were being wasted on boatloads of invaders who have absolutely no right to anything in our country, let alone the right to be here. Around 5 boats of intruders, many wearing face masks, were intercepted in the Channel, despite the UK being on a coronavirus lockdown. This latest horde of criminals can be added to the running total of 388 who have already been detained so far this year. Who knows how many have slipped the net and made it past our border force, ready to drain our country of its much needed resources and potentially carrying a deadly disease that originated far away from British shores. The current climate has been likened to wartime, with police enforcing lockdown regulations on the streets and the army on standby. So our borders should be treated in the same manner. Anyone trying to infiltrate them now should be seen as an act of war, and they should be dealt with in the same way that we would react to any invading enemy during wartime. The UK is officially on lockdown. At the start of this week, Prime Minister Boris Johnson ordered every resident of Britain to stay at home. By the end of the same week, he has announced that he has tested positive for the coronavirus.
I've developed mild symptoms of the coronavirus, that's to say a temperature and a persistent cough. And on the advice of the Chief Medical Officer, I've taken a test that has come out positive.
Thankfully, his symptoms are mild, as are 95% of all confirmed cases. And to those people out there demanding to know how on earth he managed to get tested before our NHS workers, wise up. He's the Prime Minister. Of course he's going to be tested as a priority. I wish him and everyone else suffering with the virus a full and speedy recovery. We have all been called upon to play our part in slowing the spread of this virus, to prevent our NHS from buckling under the pressure of too many people needing treatment at once. So, the legislation has now been passed and we are all subject to the Health Protection Coronavirus Restrictions England Regulations 2020. These new laws include restrictions on gatherings, requirements to close businesses and restrictions on movement. Such restrictions on our movement state that we must not leave our houses unless it is to purchase essential supplies, to seek or provide medical assistance, for exercise, or to travel to essential work. And cue the abuse of power. This video was published by Derbyshire Police, who, if you take a look at the post on Twitter, have received wall-to-wall condemnation for spying on the British public. Derbyshire Police think a good way to use British taxpayers' money is to secretly film and shame people on social media for taking exercise in one of the most remote parts of the country. We have all been told over and over again that social distancing means we must stay 2 meters away from anyone who is not living in our household. So travelling in your own car to walk your dog in the hills of the Peak District is a guaranteed way to adhere to that. But Derbyshire Police say it's not essential. This is nanny state policing stage 1. This video, which some might argue was not essential, was made within days of the lockdown announcement. There is worse to come. It's a rare occasion when the sun comes out in Britain, and when it does, the layers come off and the sunbathing starts. It's sod's law that the sun decided to make an appearance during a nationwide lockdown. But do not consider sunbathing.
Guys, you can't stay on the green. Can you all go home? Can you all go home, please? It's not a holiday. It's a lockdown, which means you don't just come in and sunbathe. Can you please just leave? rules. Can you please get off the green? Go home.
Shouting at sunbathers aren't the only additional duties the police have valiantly taken on. They are also out, stood in the middle of the road, asking why people are driving and if their passengers are related to them.
Thank you. Hello, where you driving? You're both where? That's right. Are you related? What you probably want to consider next time tomorrow if you drive to that.
Some police forces have even taken to just making stuff up. Like Greater Manchester Police, who reckon exercise is limited to around an hour per day and not more than once. Please stay at home. Well, no, it isn't. There are no time limitations set out in the legislation, which states, during the emergency period, no person may leave the place where they are living without reasonable excuse, which, under section 6.2b, includes to take exercise either alone or with other members of their household. No mention of any time limit there. And when I raised this with GMP Denton, their response was to delete the tweet. They didn't, however, delete their previous tweet, which states, "We continue to see people out on the streets. Unless you are a key worker or desperately need food or medicines, you should remain at home." Greater Manchester Police think it's only reasonable for people to leave their home once they are in desperate need of food or a key worker, despite the new legislation setting out 13 instances when people are permitted to leave their homes, none of which state desperation as a requirement. I am following the government's new regulations and doing my bit to slow the spread of this virus, but within days of these powers being implemented, we are seeing them being abused. Some people might not mind being spied on, being interrogated, being ordered to do things they aren't legally required to do, or being ordered not to do things that they are legally entitled to do. But I mind. I value my freedoms. As a woman who spent the majority of 2018 as a political prisoner, maybe I value them more than most of my fellow Britons. But I shouldn't do. Freedoms which are easily lost are not easily gained back. It's not just the police who have seized an opportunity to further their own agenda. This week we heard hardline Marxist Jeremy Corbyn make the argument for communism in Britain.
I did everything I possibly could to win both elections and to say to the people of this country, the only way our society can come together is if we're prepared to invest. I was denounced as somebody that wanted to spend more money than we could possibly afford in order to right the social wrongs of this country. I didn't think that it would take only 3 months for me to be proved absolutely right by the amount of money the government is now prepared to put in, and Parliament has just voted through to deal with the coronavirus crisis.
So deluded is this man that he actually thinks subjecting the good people of Britain to communism, an ideology that is responsible for the deaths of over 100 million people, is somehow comparable to a government bailout during a national crisis. He says it only took 3 months for him to be proven right, but let's face it, if he had gotten his hands on this country 3 months ago, there wouldn't be any money left for a government bailout. Gordon Brown is the gift that just keeps on giving. He has seen the perfect window of opportunity to call for a global government to tackle the coronavirus pandemic. Opportunist. Speaking of opportunism, Alliance Party MP Stephen Farry thought he'd use this time of national crisis to cause even further delays to the honouring of democracy and delay Brexit, asking, how quickly will the Prime Minister recognise the inevitable and seek at least a 1-year extension to the Brexit implementation process? Thankfully, Boris can clearly spot a chancer and swiftly shut him down by reminding him that Brexit has already been legislated for. Will Ramonas ever accept that they lost this vote? It's actually embarrassing, but it's also pretty sinister that they would try to use a time of crisis to reverse a democratic process. Shameful. Sadly, this isn't the only example of the pandemic bringing out the worst in people. Whilst large supermarkets are trying to cope with the huge demand and have even dedicated specific times for key workers and elderly shoppers only, some smaller outfits have seen this as a golden opportunity to exploit the British public.
Don't you think that's a bit muggish to sell toilet roll for £15? Huh? I think you need to fix up, mate. You're disgusting. You're meant to be a local shop. Selling toilet roll, £15, you know. £15. Yeah, don't give this guy no money. Trust me, he's a scumbag. You're a scumbag, bro. Look, I got you on video, you scumbag.
How much are they?
You need to do video inside the shop.
How much are they? Tell us how much you are.
Put this here.
How much are they?
You need to do video.
Tell us how much you are.
inside the shop.
Don't touch my phone, right? I'll smash your fucking shop, right? I'm asking how much you are.
I'll call police.
I don't even care.
I will police. Yeah, call the police.
Ring the police in. Ring the police, yeah? Have your hand gel. Have your hand gel. Have your hand gel. Have your hand gel. £6.99 inflated prices. Have your little hand gel, man. You little mug. £6.99, right? They're worth 50 pence. You robbing bastard.
You are calling the police. My name is Craig Kent. Yes, I've been coming to this shop for 47 years. You have.
Harassing us over toilet roll.
I'm not harassing you.
Basically, we've got a toilet roll that we're selling. Unfortunately, we are having to sell it at a slightly higher price, but he's recording me right now, and he's actually harassing us.
I'm not harassing you. I'm telling you. My name is Craig Kent. I'll give you my address. Let me speak to them. Yes, get the police right now. This lady, this man, selling toilet rolls for £10.
Aside from the public outrage, I did spot one other common trend in those videos. Many local boroughs throughout the UK have suspended parking restrictions during this time, acknowledging that there will be a lot more cars parked on residential streets requiring permits, with everyone ordered to stay at home. They also recognise that any cars parked in normally restricted areas are only there because the driver has gone to collect essential food and medicine or to carry out essential work. Not the London Borough of Bromley though. They've got their guys out gleefully giving tickets to those trying to get through this crisis, causing local tempers to fray.
Look at this fucking dog, look. Happy as fucking Larry, giving people parking tickets when there's a crisis out there.
That's not my problem.
You're a disgrace. A fucking disgrace. Do you know that?
Thank you very much.
You're a disgrace.
Thank you very much for minding your own business.
Yeah, you're a disgrace, mate. It's a crisis out there and you're giving people parking tickets.
Some might question if putting that ticket on that car really constitutes essential work. It's not all doom and gloom though. On a much brighter note, the first prisoner to die from the coronavirus was a convicted paedophile. 84-year-old Edwin Hillier was serving an 8.5-year sentence for the repeated and systematic abuse of little girls. Hillier, a former school caretaker, pleaded guilty to attempted rape and indecent assault on one victim who was aged between 10 and 15. He also admitted to 2 charges of buggery, attempted rape and indecent assault on a girl when she was aged between 7 and 14. But whoso shall offend one of these little ones which believe in me, it were better for him that a millstone were hanged about his neck and that he were drowned in the depth of the sea. In other amazing news, the rainbow looks like it has finally been reclaimed from the LGBT brigade. Children all over the country have been drawing rainbows and placing them in the windows of their homes. The rainbow, which has disgracefully been hijacked to promote degeneracy, has a far purer origin. The true meaning of the rainbow is revealed in Genesis. It is a covenant between God and man and all the animal kinds that were on the ark with Noah. A promise that there would never be such another global flood that would destroy all of mankind. We also read in Ezekiel and Revelation that the rainbow is a covenant of grace. It is a symbol of Christ himself. So when you see these rainbow pictures drawn by our innocent little children, wanting to bring a bit of joy and hope to others, remember that it symbolises a merciful God and a saviour who paid the ultimate sacrifice for us all. It is not, and never will be, a symbol of gay pride. So, thank you to our children. And, on that note, thank you to all of our unsung heroes. It is heartwarming to see the nationwide support for our NHS workers finally getting the recognition they have long deserved. But there are others who are also very deserving of our praise. The bin men, the shop assistants, the postmen, the delivery drivers, the priests, pastors and ministers, and 500,000 people who have registered to become a volunteer during this crisis, and all those who I've failed to mention that are keeping the wheels turning and putting themselves in harm's way. Thank you. I appreciate you all. JadaFranson.online was created to cut through the mainstream media propaganda machine and deliver people the truth. In the space of a year, it has developed into a worldwide network which has connected like-minded patriots across the globe. If you support my network, please consider making a financial contribution towards its running costs by clicking the button below. It only exists thanks to your generous support. So thank you.